right, Tracie, it's summer. Kids have tons of things going on. We said in the last podcast that we wanted to talk about family safety. So kick it off for us about, give that kind of overall thing of it's not just traveling. There's a lot of things going on with our kids that we need to prepare them for. Tell me about that.
Yeah, because I teach children a lot and I have been teaching a lot of classes that are prepping them for the summer. What I've been really focusing on is I want them to know about stranger awareness. I want them to know about maybe the possible dangers, of being alone, wandering off in a resort, riding your bike around the neighborhood. And I really want them to know about how to use their voice, how to go Chihuahua crazy if they need to. And then finally, my fourth point is always to the parents. There are, once again, technology, things that we can use to keep track of our kids. So my first point would be kids need to know that there are not a lot of bad strangers out there. Okay, 90% of the time we're going to know the predator. But if we're wandering around, strangers are going to look for people that are alone, people that are distracted. Okay. And believe it or not, I've heard countless stories of kids or even adults walking or jogging with the flow of traffic and being followed. It just happened to two of my students about 2 months ago, two sixth grade girls. Thank God they had taken the class. They were walking against traffic, and a guy pulled up in a van and told the girls to get in. And they ran the opposite direction and went right into their school. So preparing them about stranger awareness, not being alone, being aware. And then also we tell our kids, don't talk to strangers. We need to scratch that. Don't even stop and listen to strangers. Because think about this, if you were on vacation and they're on the beach and somebody wants to talk to your child, or they're wandering around a resort, or they're at the pool area, or even wandering around the neighborhood, maybe there's a neighbor that they don't know very well. They need to know it's not appropriate to talk to a stranger. A good stranger will always ask for permission before they talk to your child. We always say no permission, no talkie talkie. So those are just some of the basic safety rules that I like kids to know. How about you?
Well, actually, I'm gonna like in a tennis thing, I'm gonna knock the ball back towards you because one of the things that you had brought up, and you're talking about 90% of the people we know. Now we're into things like summer camp and spending the night at friends' houses.
Yeah.
So that opens up like a whole new kind of set of problems. How do you teach your kids on that?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. They've got to trust their gut. I always put my kids through a role play in class where I'll have one of my instructors act like the big brother, and he'll say, "Hey, um, while my sister's taking a shower, come on into my room. I want to show you. Our dog just had puppies." And 9 times out of 10, the child will go with a big brother, right? Or it could be the camp counselor. We don't know. So the big message is, yeah, you need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to look aware, but you need to be aware of what your tummy's telling you. If my tummy feels funny, time to tell mommy. It's your creep alarm, right? So once we get kids really in tune to that intuition, that creepy feeling, then they'll be able to recognize any type of inappropriate behavior that might happen to them at a sleepover or at a camp. Another thing, secrets are bad. We don't keep secrets in my family. We always have surprises, but not secrets. So any adult or, older brother, teenager type that's showing them extra attention, maybe they're touching them, they're in their bubble, they're not respecting their boundaries. That's the kind of behavior that we should be discussing with them to let them know you need to get out of there. You need to find a safe adult. And a safe adult is always going to be, if you can't find your parents, it'll be, a family with kids, mom with kids, groups of people that you see working. But really getting them to understand they've got to listen to their gut because that's probably the person they trust.
Well, that is the hidden danger, and that's the really horrible thing about it is it does end up being the person they trust.
Mhm.
And so they do get put in those positions and they get compromised, because I see that in classes where it's the nicest kids, the nicest, sweetest kids that are the easiest malleable. They respect their elders, they take directions, they, yes sir, no sir, they don't talk back. And then if you give a class, I gave a class at a halfway house for young teens. Oh my God, they were hellions, but they were the best at self-defense, because the thing
Yeah.
is, they don't trust anybody. And they're the first one to say, hey, I don't know you. Get away. I don't need to answer. I don't need to talk with you, that kind of thing. Oh, they're great at self-defense, but I think socially they've got a bit of a problem. So that's, I think, one of the things that us as parents, we have to run into, is that we're teaching our kids to be great adults and being very social and community minded and such, but it a lot of times it stops them from being an individual and realizing that this is not right and I need to say something. So I like the listen to your tummy. If your tummy feels bad, talk to mommy. Tell me
Yeah,
that
your
answer.
tummy feels funny, talk to mommy. Yeah.
That's
And
it.
think about this too. If they were at a camp, it could be an older kid that's targeting them. And I've heard about that too, where, they befriend an older kid. Maybe they team them up, big kid, little kid, and it's an older kid that's acting inappropriately or wanting to touch inappropriately or wanting to keep a secret, that type of thing. So it's just all about preparing them before they go, and then listing some of the things that, could happen, or things that they need to be aware of, inappropriate behavior that they need to be aware of. I always tell parents, if anything ever happened to you as a child, and listen, they say 1 in 3 women, or 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys will have some type of sexual assault before they're even 18. So for most of us, for me, it was 3 times before I was 18. If we can just talk to our kids and let them know what happened, and teach them to spot what inappropriate behavior looks like, because it could be a child that's only a few years older than them.
And I love that you're bringing this up, because boy, does this open a real can of worms for us as parents, because you don't want to destroy your kids' innocence,
Yes.
but you also don't want them to be so sheltered that they're feeling shame about telling you something that they're afraid that you will be upset about. So
Right.
it's the shame that drives tons of alcoholism and things later on in life. So how do we talk with our kids to make sure that we we try to keep their innocence long enough, but
Mhm.
also get them to the point where they realize they can tell us anything, because we're not going to be ashamed of them.
No, of course not. And in fact, I always tell my students, mom and dad will be so proud of you that you were able to talk to them, even though something inappropriate happened, that you didn't keep that secret. Because if you think your tummy feels funny now, you're really going to feel sick if you don't report it. And it could keep happening. Mom and dad will always believe you. And then you start to empower your child from that point. I hate to tell you this, but a few weeks ago, I had a mom come to me. She just found out that her ex-husband has been touching their daughter inappropriately, right? And so after the daughter took my class, she was able to talk about the secret. So now it's just empowering her through therapy, letting her know that things like this happen. It's not okay, but it doesn't have to ruin your life. It can make you stronger and bigger and more chihuahua, you know.
So, and that's interesting that you bring that up, because we run into that quite often. It's like people that are buying a burglar alarm after they've been burglarized.
Uh-huh.
We get young women, yeah, we get young women coming into class, or all sorts of women coming into class after they've been attacked.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing, and yet it's better than therapy.
Right. Right.
Literally had women tell us that going through a class and being able to win, learn the things that would give them control, learn the things that they can take their life back and their initiative back, and they can actually win this time. They literally, I've got a written thing from a woman, actually it's in the book, and she says, I don't know what it was, but boy, things really opened up for me. I've never felt better. It's better than therapy, years of therapy. And now I take a class and I feel like I can really do something. And I know that that's really helpful when you can talk about it, but until you can physically do something. I've threatened to tell the story about Wallflower Wendy. We had and I'm pretty sure she was probably attacked before, and you can see the kind of symptoms. She comes to class, she wants to be in class, but she doesn't want to participate. And so you've seen that, where they're very reticent to actually physically do the technique. So we work with that. And the fact that she's just there and absorbing it. Well, then, so we called her Wallflower Wendy, just her nickname on this story. She comes back a second time and she does great. She is going through the techniques. Doesn't have, the brakes are off. She's doing a great job. She tells us the next week that that day was actually her birthday. And so her and her husband and some friends, they went next door to where our school was, to Mexican food, and they're having a great time, and they have a margarita, then they have another margarita, then they have another margarita. And so her husband goes, hey, karate girl, what would you do? And he grabs her wrist and she palm heals him right in the face without thinking anything. And so she's telling the story, and he got a bloody nose.
Oh,
so they wrapped up some napkins and put it in his nose. And she goes, I don't know what's funnier, the fact that that I hit him without thinking about it, or that he spent the rest of the night with napkins up his nose for dinner.
I love that. That's great.
So having the ability to do a physical response changes everything.
Yeah, and especially with children. When I worked with Dr. Phil, he always would say, parents, you're not scaring your children. Stop being helicopter parents. They're only afraid of when they don't know what to do. Once you give them the tools and the techniques, and we teach kids, go to the ground, have a self-defense temper tantrum, and go chihuahua crazy. That's what's going to be empowering. And I think this is a good segue is, what are our action steps too, as far as preparing them for summer travel or camps? First of all, we need to let them know when we pick them up from camp or sleepover. I used to do this all the time. Hey, did you have fun? And they'd be like, yeah. What'd you do? Nothing. Did you swim? Uh-huh. So I heard some really good advice from an organization that prevents child sexual abuse called the Mama Bear Effect. And Mama Bear Effect, they always say, ask them questions. Hey, what did you do today that was probably your most favorite thing? What did you do today that you don't want to do again? And so that they're more open to let you know if something happened that made them feel uncomfortable, because it could be, somebody at the camp, or it could be somebody at the sleepover. And then knowing that at any point they can call you, they have the right to call you. That counselor, if they want to they want to call their parent, the counselor has to call them. If they're at a friend's house and it's 2:00 in the morning and they don't have, a cell phone, that parent, at the house where they're spending the night, needs to agree that my child can call me at any time of the night. And that's another point I want to bring up too. A lot of parents tell me, I feel really uncomfortable drilling the parent before I let my child spend the night. For instance, they have an older brother in the house, or there's older kids, and I just feel weird asking the parent about that. Well, then don't let them spend the night. If you can't talk to that parent, beforehand, just let them know what the rules are. Ask them, are the kids going to be alone? Are you going to leave the kids, with the older teenagers, and you and your husband are going to go out? And just really ask questions. And like I said, if you can't ask those questions, then don't have them spend the night there.
That's great. So what would you say then? We're talking about all of these pieces, but what would you say would be the bottom line to try to protect our children during these summer type events?
Communication. It's kind of like any type of drill. We do a fire drill at home so the kids know, where to go, how to get out, what to do. So if I were traveling with a child, the first thing I would do when I would get to the hotel, we have big rules. Let's look at not being alone, not wandering around the hotel by yourself. Even if it's siblings and the siblings are still elementary school age, I don't feel comfortable with that, but not listening to strangers. If you're on an elevator, you don't stand in the back of an elevator. Always be close to the doors with your back up against the wall next to the buttons. Brad, most kids think that if somebody got on an elevator that creeped them out, they would hit the emergency button. And I always tell them, that's going to stop the elevator. You need to just hit all the buttons and get off on the next floor. If your sibling jumps off of an elevator and leaves you on, go to the lobby. Don't try to find your floor or find your sibling. Go, like I always say, stay with people or go to people. So give them that plan. Same thing with resorts. They're all wandering around. Cruise ships again worry me because you can't even use phones or GPS out there to find your kids. So if they're going, hey, I'm going to go down and get some ice cream, at the restaurant, and you can't find them, you're going to have a really difficult time finding them. I know some cruise ships are implementing some type of technology now, but I think you have to have a phone. And we'll talk about gadgets in a minute.
Okay, that's actually a great segue because when you're talking about cruise ships, in my mind, I'm saying, yeah, they're like small cities.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say the ice cream shop, which one?
Yes.
They're that big. They're little floating little, like a town. So it's very interesting. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that technology. Is that where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for parents, but there's a great article that lists the top, I don't know, 6 or 8 gadgets that you can purchase for your child to keep track of them. If they're, elementary school age into middle school, Apple Watches are great, of course, but for, that has the internet. So there's a watch that's called the Gizmo Gadget, where kids, it's a phone that they wear. It looks like an Apple Watch, and they can actually make phone calls, and it has GPS on it. And then there's also another phone that looks like an iPhone for the older kids, but it doesn't have the internet. And it also comes in a watch form, and it's called the Gabb. And then there are things that you can place on your kids. Tracks Play is one. The Joey tag, where you actually tag your kids and then you can see where they're at on your phone. And there's one called Mommy, I'm Here. It's like a little bear. Actually, no, it's called the Angel Sense Alarm, where they have the tracker on them and they can actually hit an alarm. So it'll make a lot of noise. So you can find them, you can track them, but they're also setting off an alarm. So any type of GPS trackers. Now, here's another thing too. I always ask kids, do you know your parents' phone number? They all do. Okay, then I go like this. Okay, so now you're at the beach with grandma and you've accidentally wandered away and now you can't find grandma. Do you know her phone number? Or do you know your friend's mom's phone number? They always say no. They
Of
don't.
course.
Of
I
course.
remember doing that with my kids. And of course, you have to tell them, what's my first name? Not just dad.
No, yeah.
What's my name and what's my phone number? And
Right.
they don't call me, I call them, right? And
Uh-huh.
so they just, as we normally do with our phones, you just hit the name and we don't even look at the phone number anymore. So
Right.
we did have to go through that, memorize that, but also realize they need to know their mothers and fathers full names to be able
Yeah,
to say that's, on the
exactly.
other hand, I had a mom telling me, oh really, now my daughter calls me Sarah. She doesn't call me mom. She go, and it's kind of a funny thing.
That's great. Yeah. Well, there's an easy solution. If you're I don't know, you're wandering around a city somewhere and you're with grandma, have grandma's phone number on a piece of paper in your pocket, in your shoe, write it on your arm. And parents, I'll put the link in the show notes again. Just go on Amazon and put in there child safety tattoos. And there's all sorts of them, from anything from like beach theme to ninjas to dinosaurs. And it's just like a little tattoo. You put it on their arm. It looks really cool. And then it says, if I'm lost, please call this number.
So
And there you go. And
that's
it's waterproof.
So you were talking about writing it down, and I was thinking about a thing with one of my sons, which was when they were really little, and they flipped out when I grabbed a pen and I had to write something down. And I wrote it on my arm, a number on my arm, and then I think we did something else, and I told them to write whatever the phone number on their arm, and they laughed. They're like, "We can draw on ourselves." they thought we were breaking so many rules, and you just think like, yeah, they're conditioned.
Yeah.
Like, no, don't do that. What?
Yeah.
Writing on yourself? No. And now we realize they had a kick. They love doing that. So
yeah.
it's
In the old days,
thing.
it used to be that put the Sharpie on the arm. Well, now they have really cool, very inexpensive kid tattoos, and you can just write the phone number on. Yeah. But
really fun.
I wanted to bring up another thing too. We were staying at a resort years ago, and we had our dog with us, and there was a little girl wandering around the resort all by herself, and she wanted to come into our hotel room and see our dog. And of course, I'm freaking out. I'm thinking, you are so lucky you chose our family. Where's your dad? Okay. So I think it's just really important that sometimes, when as a mom, maybe dad's in charge of the kids for the morning, and I'm going to go get my massage or what have you. And I think that dad's watching the kids, or maybe I think he's watching the kids. He thinks I'm watching the kids, and then they wander away, and neither one of us knows that child's left alone. It's just so important to really emphasize we never ever talk to strangers, even if they seem really friendly. They try to invite you somewhere. Permission protects. You have to have permission. And I'm sorry, but I would definitely have a GPS. I love the little GPS bracelet. I think it's called the Joey tag, and it'll be in the link. And it's just a silicone bracelet that has GPS on it, and it has an alarm, and it's very inexpensive.
That's interesting. I think that will really kind of satisfy a lot of our students that say, well, what can I buy? Can I buy something to protect myself? So in this case, it's really helping protect your kids. So I love it. Thanks, Tracie.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, make sure you have that plan. When you get up in the morning and you're getting ready to go out to do your excursion or your tour, it's just it's reminding them of phone numbers. It's reminding them of the hotel that they're at, the name of the hotel. It's reminding them, showing them. In fact, I always would say to my kids, you show me who your safe adults are. And they would go, oh, there's a mom with kids, or there's a bunch of people in that restaurant there. That man over there is working, and just, constantly writing the script for their mind.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we're going to have all that stuff in the show notes.
Yep, we sure will. And just have a safe and have fun summer, and get a massage.
Thanks, Tracie. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Good talking to you.